The Bible isn't just a book of random stories. It's 66 different books that come together to tell one story. An incredible one about God's love for us. And now for an amazing story from the book of Exodus, chapters 13 and 14.
When God freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, they had to leave immediately with all their families and flocks. It must have been particularly hard for kids to start on a long road trip in the middle of the night. One of those kids could have been a young boy named Avi, fleeing across the desert with his parents and sister. After several days of travel, they finally reached the edge of the Red Sea. Avi knelt down on the shore to tighten his sandal straps and gazed over the waters. Brilliant colors streaked the sky as the sun dipped toward the horizon.
I can hardly see the other side.
Behind Avi, the entire Israelite camp spread out, thousands and thousands of people. Avi turned to his father Seth, who was tending their donkeys.
When will we get to the land God promised us?
It's a long trip, Avi. Moses is listening to God. He'll make sure we get there.
They both looked toward a rise in the land nearby where Moses stood with Aaron and the other leaders, his white beard wild, a thick staff in his hand. Beyond, a column of swirling clouds glowed.
Is God in that pillar?
God is using the cloud to go ahead and guide us, just like he uses that pillar of fire at night.
Avi's younger sister Hava skipped up, swinging the silver bracelet an Egyptian woman had given her.
Are we almost there yet?
It's a long trip, Hava. Moses will lead us. He talks to God. See?
Avi pointed toward Moses, but something had changed. Moses and his companions were staring out across the desert, but while Moses remained calm, the other men were shouting and pointing.
What's happening?
As they started forward, men began running from the hill, calling out,
"Pharaoh's changed his mind. He's coming after us with all his chariots and horses and troops."
Avi turned toward the desert. He could see faint clouds of dust in the distance.
Where will we go? There's nowhere but the water.
I don't know, Avi.
I'm afraid.
I am too. But I believe God will help us. Come on.
Together they ran toward the place where Moses stood. A panicked crowd had already gathered.
"Why did you bring us out here to die? It would have been better to stay in Egypt as slaves."
Avi glanced back at the growing dust cloud. It had been terrible working so hard for Pharaoh. He and Hava even had to carry bricks as an Egyptian master shouted at them. Moses held up his rod and called out over the crowd.
Don't be afraid. Stand firm. The Lord will save you today. He will fight for you. Just be still.
Moses waved the people away with his rod and stalked toward the water's edge.
What's he doing?
Talking with God, I think. Come, let's get ready.
But what do we do then?
We wait on God, just like Moses said.
Look at the cloud. It's moved all the way to the back of the camp.
God's standing between us and the Egyptians.
But we still can't go anywhere with all that water.
Avi pointed back toward the Red Sea. He spotted Moses there at the water's edge, holding his rod high.
Can I go see what he's doing?
All right, but stay in sight.
So Avi raced along the shore. Before he actually got to Moses, he ran smack into a lanky man with piercing eyes, Moses' brother Aaron. They both tumbled into the sand.
Whoa, watch where you're going.
Sorry, but please, what is Moses doing?
Oh, God told him to hold his walking stick over the Red Sea. God will gain glory because of all this.
But what's going to happen?
Watch. Even as Avi rose and brushed off sand, he could feel the wind rising. It whipped the water into a wild froth, and suddenly, the water parted right in the spot before where Moses was standing.
Wow!
As night fell, Avi and his family watched in amazement. The wind was pushing the water into two great walls with a dry path in between. They could hear the distant sounds of Pharaoh's army, but the clouds separated the Egyptians from God's people.
God made a way through the water.
Moses called out to the Israelites.
Hurry, we must walk through.
Great. The Egyptians won't get us, but the fish will.
Avi's family hurried to join the caravan passing into the sea.
What if the water falls on us?
Avi was wondering the same thing, but he squeezed Hava's hand.
God pushed the water back. He'll keep us safe.
As Avi reached the water's edge, the strong wind whipped his hair. The water rose in high walls towering above him. In spite of what he had told Hava, Avi's stomach was tied in knots. He closed his eyes tightly, then took his first step between the waters. Nothing happened. When Avi opened his eyes, He was standing safe between the two walls of water.
Look, it's okay. Come on, Hava.
Together, Avi and his family and all the Israelites marched right through the heart of the sea. But before all of God's chosen people could get across, another noise struck terror.
Pharaoh's coming after us!
Avi felt panic grip him again.
How could God bring us through just to let them get us?
As dawn neared, Avi heard something new. Aaron called out of the crowd.
God has jammed the wheels of their chariots. The Egyptians are stuck in the middle of the Red Sea.
Just beyond Aaron, Avi saw Moses at the water's edge. As the last Israelite made it through, Moses raised his rod again. Avi tugged on Aaron's robe.
What's he doing this time?
God told him to reach out his hand over the water again.
As the sun burst over the horizon, the walls of water began to collapse. Avi stared as wave after wave crashed back into place, sweeping over the Egyptians and the horses and the chariots, washing them all away. Not one was left. Everything about the last day had seemed impossible. Avi was grateful that God had given him the courage to take that first step between those walls of water, even in the face of fear.